Ladies and gentlemen, life has a way of testing us in the most unexpected ways. There are moments when fear grips us so tightly that we forget what it means to breathe, to hope, to believe. But today, I want to tell you that fear is not the end of your story. Faith is. I remember a time when fear dictated every thought in my mind. It whispered that I was not enough, that my dreams were too big, that my scars, both seen and unseen, defined me. But faith has a different voice. It does not shout, it does not demand. It simply reassures. Faith says, you are more than your struggles. You are more than your pain. And with God, you are never alone. The problem is that fear is loud. It echoes in our minds, making us believe we are powerless. But God's power can rewire that mindset. He takes our broken pieces and turns them into something beautiful. He does not promise a life without trials, but He does promise strength in the middle of them. When I surrendered my fears and chose faith, something changed. My circumstances didn't shift overnight, but my perspective did. I stopped asking, why is this happening to me? And started asking, what is God teaching me? And when I did that, my pain became my purpose. Maybe today you are standing at a crossroads, unsure of your next step. Maybe fear has told you that you are too weak, too damaged, too lost. But I am here to tell you, fear is a liar. Because the truth is, you are strong, you are capable, and with faith, you are unstoppable. God's power is the greatest force in this world. It can turn the impossible into possible, the broken into whole, and the fearful into fearless. The question is, will you let Him? Choose faith over fear. Because when you do, your mindset will change, your heart will heal, and your life will transform. Fear is one of the most powerful emotions that can take hold of the human mind. It is a force that paralyzes, cripples, and diminishes our potential. It tells us that we are not capable, that we are not worthy, that we are not enough. It plants doubt in our hearts and convinces us that failure is inevitable, that disappointment is our destiny, and that suffering is the only path we will ever walk. Fear is loud. It echoes through our thoughts and overshadows every dream, every hope, and every possibility of something greater. It is persistent and relentless, whispering in our ears that stepping forward will only lead to more pain, that trusting in something beyond ourselves is too risky, that letting go of control will only lead to chaos. But faith is different. Faith does not come with shouts or demands. It does not force itself upon us or demand immediate obedience. Instead, faith is a gentle reassurance, a quiet whisper that reminds us that there is something greater at work, something beyond our comprehension that holds our future in His hands. Faith tells us that despite the uncertainty, despite the fear, despite the overwhelming obstacles in our way, we are not alone. It reminds us that we are stronger than we think, that we are capable of overcoming, and that the circumstances we face do not define our destiny. The battle between fear and faith is one that plays out in our minds every single day. From the moment we wake up, we are faced with choices. Choices that determine whether we will listen to the voice of fear or the voice of faith. Fear tells us to stay in our comfort zones, to avoid risks, to settle for less than what we are capable of. Fear tells us to play it safe, to lower our expectations, to never aim too high, because the higher we climb, the harder we may fall. But faith tells us to step forward, even when we cannot see the ground beneath our feet. Faith tells us to trust in the unseen, to believe in possibilities beyond our understanding, to lean into a strength that is not our own. Fear is like a shadow, always following us, always lingering, always present in the background. But shadows only exist when there is light, and faith is that light. It illuminates our path. It pushes back the darkness, and it reminds us that we were never meant to live in fear. Faith does not eliminate challenges, nor does it guarantee a life without hardship, but it does provide the courage to face whatever comes our way. It shifts our mindset from one of limitation to one of endless possibility. It rewires the way we think, changing the narrative from "I can't" to With God, all things are possible. There are moments in life when fear seems justified. We face loss, disappointment, rejection, and heartbreak. We experience failures, setbacks, and unexpected detours. And in those moments, fear becomes even louder, trying to convince us that things will never get better, that our pain is permanent, that hope is foolish. But it is precisely in these moments that faith is most powerful. Faith does not deny the reality of hardship. It acknowledges it, but refuses to be defeated by it. Faith does not ignore pain, but it reminds us that pain is not the final chapter of our story. Faith sees beyond what is in front of us, beyond the fear, beyond the failure, and into the future that God has prepared. Faith is not about having all the answers. It is not about knowing exactly how things will work out or having a clear map of the journey ahead. Faith is about trusting even when we cannot see, believing even when there is no visible evidence, and holding on even when everything in us wants to let go. It is about walking forward, step by step, even when uncertainty surrounds us. Faith is the belief that even when we do not understand, God does. That even when we feel weak, His strength is enough. That even when fear tries to overwhelm us, we have the power to overcome. Think about the moments in life when fear has held you back. Think about the dreams you never pursued because fear told you that you would fail. Think about the relationships you never mended because fear told you that rejection was inevitable. Think about the opportunities you let slip away because fear convinced you that you were not good enough, not strong enough, not ready. Now imagine what would have happened if, in those moments, you had chosen faith. Imagine if, instead of believing the voice of fear, you had trusted in the power of faith. Imagine if, instead of shrinking back, you had stepped forward with confidence, knowing that God was with you every step of the way. The truth is, fear will always be present. It will always try to hold us back, to keep us small, to convince us that we are not capable of more. But faith is always present too, and the choice is ours. Will we allow fear to define our lives, or will we choose faith instead? Will we let fear dictate our decisions, or will we trust in the power of something greater? Will we remain paralyzed by fear, or will we move forward with faith, knowing that even when we do not have all the answers, God does? Fear may be loud, but faith is stronger. It is stronger because it is not based on our own limited understanding, but on the limitless power of God. It is stronger because it does not depend on what we can see, but on what we believe. It is stronger because it is not rooted in our own strength, but in the strength of the One who created us, who knows us, and who holds our future in His hands. Every great achievement in life requires faith. Every breakthrough, every moment of transformation, every step toward greatness begins with the decision to trust rather than to fear. It is faith that allows people to overcome insurmountable odds, to rise above their circumstances, to turn pain into purpose. It is faith that gives us the resilience to keep going, even when everything in us wants to give up. It is faith that allows us to see beyond what is in front of us and to trust in the unseen, knowing that God is always working, always moving, always leading us towards something greater. Faith is a choice. It is a daily decision to trust rather than to doubt, to believe rather than to fear, to move forward rather than to remain stuck. It is a mindset that transforms the way we see the world, the way we see our future, and the way we see our future. And when we choose faith over fear, everything changes. Our perspective shifts, our strength grows, and we begin to walk in the confidence that we are not alone, that we are capable, that we are loved, and that we are destined for more. The power of faith is limitless, and it is available to every single one of us. It does not require perfection. It does not require us to have it all figured out. It simply requires us to trust, to take that first step, to believe, even when fear tries to convince us otherwise. And when we do, we will find that faith is not just a feeling, not just a vague idea. It is a force that has the power to transform our lives in ways we never thought possible. God's power can transform your mindset in ways that go beyond human understanding. The way we think determines the way we live. Our mindset shapes our decisions, our emotions, and ultimately our future. If our minds are filled with doubt, fear, and negativity, then our lives will reflect those same struggles. But when we allow God to work within us, when we surrender our thoughts to His power, everything begins to change. Transformation does not come from our own strength, but from a deep, unwavering trust in God's ability to renew our minds. The human mind is a battlefield where fear and faith are constantly at war. Every day we are bombarded with thoughts that either pull us closer to faith or drag us deeper into fear. When challenges arise, our natural tendency is to focus on what is going wrong, to dwell on the worst-case scenarios, and to let anxiety take over. But God calls us to something different. He calls us to trust in His power, to shift our perspective, and to see our circumstances not through the lens of fear, but through the lens of faith. He invites us to let go of our limited understanding and embrace His limitless wisdom. God's power does not just help us endure difficult moments. It changes the way we experience them. A mind that is transformed by God sees hardships as opportunities for growth rather than as obstacles to avoid. It views failures not as the end of the road, but as a lesson that prepares us for what is ahead. It replaces worry with worship, doubt with trust, and uncertainty with confidence in God's plan. This transformation is not instantaneous. It is a process that requires surrender. We must be willing to release control, to stop relying on our own limited perspective, and to invite God to reshape our thinking. One of the biggest struggles we face is the battle between what we see and what we believe. It is easy to have faith when everything is going well, but when life becomes difficult, our faith is tested. We begin to question whether God is truly in control. We start doubting His promises. We wonder if He sees our pain, if He hears our prayers, if He cares about what we are going through. But faith is not about seeing immediate results. It is about trusting that God is working even when we cannot see it. His power operates beyond what our minds can comprehend. Just because we do not see change happening does not mean that transformation is not taking place. When we allow God to transform our mindset, we begin to think differently about the struggles we face. Instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" we start asking, "What is God trying to teach me?" Instead of feeling defeated by challenges, we see them as opportunities to draw closer to God, to rely on His strength rather than our own. We recognize that even in our weakest moments, He is working within us, shaping us, refining us, and preparing us for something greater. The world tells us that strength comes from self-reliance, that we must always be in control, that we must figure things out on our own. But God's power teaches us that true strength comes from surrender. It is in our moments of weakness that we experience the depth of His power. When we let go of our need to control every outcome, we open the door for God to work in ways that we never imagined. His power can break chains of fear, anxiety, and doubt. It can heal wounds that we thought would never heal. It can bring peace in the midst of chaos. Many of us carry limiting beliefs that hold us back from experiencing God's power. We convince ourselves that we are not good enough, that we are too broken, that our past mistakes define us. But God's power rewires those thoughts. He reminds us that we are not defined by our failures, but by His grace. He replaces thoughts of inadequacy with the truth that we are fearfully and wonderfully made. He takes our brokenness and turns it into something beautiful. When we allow His power to renew our minds, we stop seeing ourselves through the lens of our past and start seeing ourselves through His love. A mind transformed by God does not seek validation from the world. It does not depend on external circumstances to find peace. It is not shaken by temporary setbacks. When we truly understand God's power, we stop seeking approval from people and start resting in the assurance of His love. We recognize that our worth is not determined by our achievements, our mistakes, or the opinions of others, but by the fact that we are children of God. This shift in mindset is life-changing. It frees us from the pressure to prove ourselves. It releases us from the burden of comparison. It allows us to walk in confidence, knowing that we are exactly where God wants us to be. God's power not only transforms our individual mindset, but also affects the way we interact with the world. When our minds are filled with faith rather than fear, we begin to speak differently, act differently, and respond to challenges differently. We no longer see problems as obstacles, but as opportunities to glorify God. We stop reacting out of fear and start responding with faith. We treat others with kindness and patience because we understand that God's love is greater than any temporary frustration. Our transformed mindset allows us to live with purpose, to pursue dreams that once felt impossible, and to take bold steps of faith. The process of transformation requires intentional effort. We must guard our thoughts and be mindful of what we allow to shape our thinking. The voices we listen to, the words we speak over ourselves, and the beliefs we hold on to all play a role in shaping our mindset. The more we immerse ourselves in God's Word, the more we allow His truth to replace the lies that fear has planted in our minds. We must train ourselves to focus on His promises rather than our problems, to dwell on His faithfulness rather than our failures, to hold on to His truth rather than the uncertainties that surround us. Doubt will always try to creep in. There will be days when fear feels stronger than faith, but God's power is constant, unwavering, and unshakable. He is always ready to renew our minds, to replace our fears with confidence, to take our doubts and turn them into testimonies of His faithfulness. The more we trust in His power, the more we experience the freedom that comes from knowing that we do not have to figure everything out on our own. We do not have to carry the weight of our struggles alone. We do not have to be in control, because God already is. There is nothing too broken for God to restore, nothing too lost for Him to redeem, nothing too difficult for Him to handle. The greatest transformation happens when we finally release our grip, when we surrender our fears, when we invite Him to take control of our thoughts. His power is not limited by our circumstances. It is not diminished by our doubts. It is not dependent on our strength. It is always available, always working, always ready to transform the way we think, the way we live, and the way we experience the world. Choosing to allow God's power to transform our mindset is the key to living a life of faith rather than fear. It is a daily choice to believe in His promises rather than our problems, to trust in His plan rather than our doubts, to hold on to His truth rather than the lies that fear tries to plant in our hearts. The more we lean into His power, the more we will experience the peace, the confidence, and the unshakable faith that comes from knowing that He is always in control. Pain is one of the most powerful experiences we go through as human beings. It is unavoidable, unpredictable, and often overwhelming. It comes in many forms: physical suffering, emotional heartbreak, disappointment, rejection, failure, and loss. Pain can make us feel like we are trapped, unable to move forward, stuck in a cycle of despair and hopelessness. It has the ability to consume our thoughts, steal our joy, and leave us questioning everything. In those moments, it is easy to believe that pain is meaningless, that suffering serves no purpose, and that the hurt we feel is nothing more than an unfortunate part of life. But when we look at pain through the lens of faith, we begin to see that it is not just an end, it can also be a beginning. Pain, when surrendered to God, can become something far greater than we ever imagined. It can become our purpose. There is a common belief that pain is something to be avoided at all costs. Society teaches us to seek comfort, to escape hardship, and to remove ourselves from anything that causes suffering. But the truth is, pain is often the birthplace of transformation. It is in our most painful moments that we learn the deepest lessons, that we grow in ways we never expected, and that we are shaped into the people we are meant to become. Pain has a way of breaking down the walls we have built around ourselves, stripping away our illusions of control, and bringing us to a place of true vulnerability. And it is in that vulnerability that God meets us. He does not leave us alone in our suffering. He does not ignore our cries or dismiss our struggles. Instead, He takes our pain and uses it to mold us, refine us, and strengthen us. Many of the most inspiring people in the world have been shaped by pain. Their struggles became the foundation for their purpose. Their hardships became the reason they were able to make an impact on others. The things that once caused them the greatest suffering later became the very things that gave them a reason to keep going. This is not a coincidence. It is the power of God at work. He does not waste pain. Every tear, every hardship, every battle we face is used for something greater. When we trust Him, we begin to see that even our worst moments have meaning. One of the hardest things to accept is that pain is not always removed from our lives, even when we pray for relief. Sometimes God allows pain to remain because He knows that it is through that pain that we will discover our true strength. He does not always take away the storm, but He gives us the ability to stand in the middle of it. He does not always remove the burden, but He gives us the endurance to carry it. And in the process, we are transformed. We develop resilience. We gain wisdom. We learn to lean on Him in ways we never did before. The suffering we experience today prepares us for the purpose we will step into tomorrow. There are moments in life when pain feels unbearable, when everything inside us wants to give up, when the weight of our struggles feels too heavy, when we cannot see a way forward. It is in those moments that faith becomes our lifeline. Faith reminds us that what we are going through is not the end of our story. Faith tells us that there is something beyond this pain, that there is a reason to keep going, that God is still working even when we cannot see it. Faith does not deny the reality of suffering, but it refuses to let suffering define us. It gives us the courage to rise, to heal, and to find purpose, even in the midst of brokenness. Pain often changes the way we see the world. It shifts our perspective, showing us what truly matters. It teaches us to appreciate what we once took for granted, to be grateful for the smallest moments of joy, to value the people in our lives more deeply. It softens us, making us more compassionate, more understanding, more willing to help others who are struggling. When we have experienced deep pain, we recognize it in others. We know what it feels like to be lost, to be hurting, to be desperate for hope. And because of that, we are able to reach out in ways we never could before. Our pain becomes a bridge that connects us to those who are suffering. It allows us to speak words of encouragement with authenticity, to offer comfort with sincerity, to bring healing to others through the lessons we have learned. Purpose is not always something we discover in moments of joy. More often than not, it is born from our greatest struggles. The things that once broke us become the very things that fuel us. The disappointments that once made us feel like giving up become the reason we fight even harder. The heartbreak that once shattered us becomes the foundation for the love and compassion we extend to others. Nothing we go through is wasted when we allow God to use it. Every setback, every trial, every painful experience is shaping us into the person we are meant to be. When we look at pain through this perspective, we begin to see that it is not something to be feared. It is not a punishment, nor is it a sign that we are abandoned. Instead, it is an opportunity. It is a chance to grow, to deepen our faith, to step into a greater purpose. It is a chance to let go of the things that no longer serve us, to surrender our need for control, to trust in a plan that is far greater than our own. It is a reminder that we are not defined by what happens to us, but by how we respond to it. Pain has the power to make us bitter or to make us better. It can either harden us or soften us. It can either keep us trapped in the past or propel us into our purpose. The choice is ours. We can allow pain to consume us, to make us angry, to fill us with resentment, or we can allow it to refine us, to teach us, to shape us into the person God created us to be. When we choose the latter, we begin to see that every difficult experience has meaning. We begin to understand that our struggles are not in vain. We begin to walk with a sense of purpose, knowing that everything we have been through is leading us to something greater. Pain may feel like an ending, but with faith, it becomes a beginning. It becomes the catalyst for change, the foundation for growth, the fuel for a life lived with meaning. It is through our wounds that we discover our strength. It is through our brokenness that we learn to rely on something greater than ourselves. It is through our suffering that we are shaped into vessels of hope, love, and resilience. God never allows pain without purpose. And when we surrender our pain to Him, we find that it becomes the very thing that propels us into the life we were meant to live. Faith is not just a feeling, it is a choice. A daily decision to trust in something greater than ourselves. It is easy to believe in God's plan when everything is going well, when doors are opening, when life seems to be unfolding effortlessly. But real faith is tested in the moments of uncertainty, in the seasons of waiting, in the times when nothing makes sense. It is in those moments that we must choose to hold on to faith, even when doubt whispers that we should let go. It is in those moments that we must decide to trust in God's timing, even when we cannot see the road ahead. One of the greatest challenges in life is learning to wait. We live in a world that values instant results, immediate gratification, and quick solutions. We expect things to happen on our timeline, and when they don't, we begin to question whether they will happen at all. Waiting can be one of the most difficult things we experience because it forces us to release control.
There will always be moments when fear tries to take over. There will always be challenges that seem impossible to overcome. But in those moments, we have a choice. We can let fear win, or we can choose faith. We can allow fear to keep us stuck, or we can take a leap of faith and trust that God will catch us. We can live a life ruled by fear, or we can live a life fueled by faith. When we choose faith, we begin to see that fear is just an illusion. It is a lie that tries to keep us from reaching our full potential. It is a barrier that stands between us and the life God has planned for us. But when we push past that fear, when we step out in faith, when we trust that God is with us every step of the way, we discover that we are capable of more than we ever imagined. Faith over fear does not mean we will never be afraid. It does not mean we will never face uncertainty. But it does mean that fear will no longer control us. It means that we will move forward even when we are afraid, that we will trust in God's plan even when we do not understand it, that we will believe in His promises even when they have not yet come to pass. It means that we will live with boldness, with confidence, with the unwavering belief that we were created for something greater. The life we are meant to live is on the other side of fear, the dreams we are meant to pursue, the impact we are meant to make, the purpose we are meant to fulfill. All of it is waiting for us to take that first step of faith. And when we do, we will find that fear was never as powerful as it seemed. We will find that God's strength is greater than any obstacle we face. We will find that the moment we choose faith over fear, we unlock a life of endless possibilities. Hope is one of the most powerful forces in the world. It is what keeps us going when everything around us tells us to give up. It is the quiet whisper in our hearts that says, keep believing, keep trusting, keep moving forward. Hope is what gives us strength in our darkest moments, what helps us rise after we have fallen, what allows us to see light even when we are surrounded by darkness. It is the anchor that holds us steady in the middle of the storm, reminding us that no matter how strong the winds may blow, they will not break us. Life is full of unexpected challenges, moments of deep pain, seasons of uncertainty. There will be times when we feel lost, when our faith is tested, when the weight of our burdens feels too heavy to carry. There will be moments when we wonder if things will ever get better, if the struggles we face will ever end, if the dreams we hold in our hearts will ever come to pass. But hope reminds us that our current situation is not the end of our story. It tells us that even though we may not see the way forward right now, God is already making a way. It reassures us that no matter how impossible things may seem, nothing is impossible for God. Hope is not just a feeling, it is a choice. It is the decision to believe in the goodness of God, even when circumstances say otherwise. It is the determination to keep trusting even when everything in us wants to give up. It is the unwavering belief that there is more ahead, that God is working behind the scenes, that our struggles have a purpose. Hope is what allows us to look at a difficult situation and say, if this is not how my story ends, there is more for me. God is not finished with me yet. One of the greatest enemies of hope is doubt. Doubt creeps in when we experience disappointment, when things do not go as planned, when prayers seem unanswered. It whispers that maybe we are not worthy, that maybe we were wrong to believe, that maybe we should just accept things as they are and stop hoping for more. But doubt is a liar. It tries to steal our joy, our faith, our confidence in God's promises. It wants to keep us stuck, to make us settle for less than what we are meant for. But when we choose to hold on to hope, we silence the voice of doubt. We remind ourselves that God's timing is perfect, that His ways are higher than our ways, that just because we cannot see the whole picture does not mean He is not working. Hope does not mean we will never face challenges. It does not mean we will never experience heartbreak, loss or pain. But it does mean that we will not be defeated by those things. It means that we will rise again, that we will keep going, that we will refuse to let our circumstances define us. Hope gives us resilience, the ability to endure, the strength to keep pressing forward even when the road is long and difficult. Many times, we place our hope in things that are temporary: success, money, relationships, achievements. We believe that if we can just reach a certain goal, if we can just have a certain thing, then we will be happy, then we will feel secure. But the truth is, these things will always leave us wanting more. They may bring temporary happiness, but they cannot give us the deep, lasting peace that we long for. True hope is found in God alone. He is the only one who never changes, who never fails, who never leaves us. When our hope is in Him, we are unshakable. No matter what happens around us, no matter what storms come our way, we remain standing because our hope is built on something eternal. There are moments in life when hope feels distant, when it feels like the darkness will never lift. Maybe it is because of a personal loss, a setback, or a prolonged season of waiting. In those moments, it can be tempting to give in to despair, to stop believing that things will get better. But those are the times when we need hope the most. Those are the times when we must remind ourselves of all the ways God has been faithful in the past, of all the battles He has already won for us, of all the ways He has turned our pain into purpose. When we remember what He has done before, it strengthens our faith for what He will do again. Hope is not passive, it is active. It requires us to take steps forward, even when we do not know exactly where the path leads. It requires us to continue praying, continue believing, continue doing our part. It requires us to trust that even when we cannot see the results yet, something is happening beneath the surface. Just like a seed planted in the ground, it takes time for growth to appear. But just because we cannot see, it does not mean it is not happening. Hope gives us the patience to wait, the faith to trust, and the strength to persevere. One of the most beautiful things about hope is that it is contagious. When we choose to live with hope, we inspire others to do the same. When we refuse to give up, when we keep believing even in the face of adversity, it gives others permission to believe as well. Our hope can be a light to those who are struggling, a reminder that they are not alone, that their pain is not the end of their story. We have the power to lift others up simply by choosing to live with hope. Hope also changes the way we see our challenges. Instead of viewing difficulties as obstacles, we begin to see them as opportunities. Instead of focusing on what is missing, we focus on what is possible. Instead of dwelling on our struggles, we focus on the strength we are gaining through them. Hope allows us to find meaning in our pain, to see purpose in our struggles, to recognize that even in the most difficult moments, God is still at work. There will always be times in life when hope feels like a fragile thread, when it seems easier to give in to despair than to keep believing. But in those moments, we must make the choice to hold on. We must remind ourselves that no storm lasts forever, that no darkness is permanent, that no struggle is without purpose. The sun always rises, the seasons always change, and God's promises always come to pass. Hope is a powerful force, stronger than fear, greater than doubt, more enduring than any challenge we face. It is what allows us to keep dreaming, keep believing, keep trusting. It is what gives us the courage to take risks, to step into the unknown, to pursue the life we were created for. And when we choose to live with hope, we open ourselves up to endless possibilities, to miracles, to the extraordinary life that God has planned for us. No matter what you are facing today, no matter how heavy your burdens may feel, hold on to hope. Trust that God is working, that He is leading you, that He is preparing something greater than you can imagine. Do not let fear steal your dreams. Do not let doubt weaken your faith. Do not let discouragement make you give up. Keep believing, keep trusting, keep moving forward. Because when you choose hope, you choose to believe that the best is yet to come. Faith over fear is not just a mindset, it is a way of life. It is the decision to trust in God's plan even when we cannot see the full picture. It is the courage to move forward despite uncertainty, to rise after failure, to believe in His promises even when they have not yet come to pass. Fear will always try to hold us back, to keep us small, to convince us that we are not strong enough, not capable enough, not worthy enough, not worthy enough. But faith reminds us that we are more than conquerors, that we are chosen, that we are equipped with everything we need to fulfill our purpose. The journey of life is filled with challenges, but every struggle carries a lesson, every setback holds a purpose, and every storm strengthens our faith. When we choose faith over fear, we are no longer bound by doubt, insecurity, or past mistakes. We begin to see ourselves the way God sees us, strong, capable, and created for a divine purpose. We stop waiting for the perfect moment and start stepping forward in faith, knowing that God's timing is always right. We no longer allow fear to dictate our decisions, but instead, we trust that even in the unknown, we are being led towards something greater. Courage is not the absence of fear. It is the ability to move forward despite it. Hope is not just wishful thinking. It is the unshakable belief that our best days are still ahead. Strength is not measured by how much we can avoid struggle, but by how we rise in the face of it. Every time we choose faith, we silence fear. Every time we step forward in courage, we break the chains that try to hold us back. Every time we trust in God's plan, we step into the life we were meant to live. So as you move forward, hold on to faith. Let it be the foundation that keeps you steady, the light that guides you through darkness, the strength that carries you when you feel weak. Let it remind you that no matter what challenges you face, you are not alone. God is walking with you, preparing you, strengthening you, and leading you to something greater. Your story is not over. Your dreams are not impossible. Your purpose is waiting for you. All you have to do is step out in faith, let go of fear, and trust that the best is yet to come. Faith in God's timing means trusting that He sees the full picture while we only see a small part. It means believing that His plan is better than anything we could ever imagine, even when it does not unfold the way we expected. Sometimes what we think we need right now is not actually what is best for us. Sometimes the delay is not a denial, it is a redirection. God closes doors not to hurt us, but to guide us towards something greater. The opportunities we think we are missing, the prayers that seem to go unanswered, the dreams that feel out of reach, none of these things are lost. They are simply waiting for the right time. But trusting in God's timing is not always easy. Doubt creeps in, fear takes hold, and impatience convinces us to take matters into our own hands. We start trying to force things to happen, to manipulate situations, to create our own path instead of following the one God has laid before us. And when things do not go as planned, we become frustrated, discouraged, and even resentful. But faith requires surrender. It requires us to let go of our own timeline and place our trust fully in God's. It requires us to stop striving, stop worrying, stop trying to control what is beyond our power, and instead rest in the knowledge that everything is unfolding exactly as it should. Waiting is not just about patience, it is about preparation. God does not withhold blessings from us. He prepares us to receive them. If we receive something before we are ready for it, we might mishandle it, take it for granted, or fail to appreciate its true value. Sometimes the waiting season is where we grow the most. It is where we learn the lessons we need for the next chapter. It is where we develop the strength, wisdom, and faith required to handle the responsibilities that come with what we are asking for. If we rush ahead, we might miss out on the very things that will equip us for our purpose. But many times we look at waiting as wasted time. We feel like we are stuck, like nothing is happening, like life is passing us by. But what if the waiting season is actually where the most important work is taking place? What if the delays we see as disappointments are actually God's way of protecting us? What if every moment of waiting is an opportunity to deepen our faith, strengthen our character, and grow in ways we never expected? When we shift our perspective, we realize that waiting is not about doing nothing. It is about trusting that God is doing something. Faith in God's timing requires us to believe that even when we do not understand what is happening, God is still in control. It requires us to trust that He is not just working on the things around us, He is working on us. He is shaping our hearts, refining our minds, and preparing us for the blessings He has in store. And when the time is right, when we are ready, when everything is aligned according to His perfect plan, He will open the doors that no one can shut. Sometimes faith means letting go of our expectations. It means surrendering the timeline we have created in our minds and allowing God to lead the way. It means understanding that just because something has not happened yet does not mean it never will. Every promise God has made will come to pass, but in His time, not ours. We must resist the urge to compare our journey to others, to question why someone else's prayers seem to be answered faster, to wonder why our breakthrough has not yet arrived. Each of us has our own path, our own story, our own timing. And God knows exactly when and how to bring His plans to life in each of our lives. Faith is not about having all the answers. It is about trusting even when we have none. It is about believing that delays are not defeats, that closed doors are not rejections, and that setbacks are not the end of the story. It is about knowing that every moment of waiting is an opportunity to strengthen our trust in God, to grow in patience, and to prepare for what is to come. We may not always understand why things happen the way they do. We may question why certain prayers go unanswered, why some dreams seem so far away, why life does not always go according to plan. But faith reminds us that God's ways are higher than our ways, His thoughts are greater than our thoughts, and His timing is always perfect. Even when we do not see it, He is working. Even when we feel forgotten, He is present. Even when the waiting feels unbearable, He is preparing us for something greater than we could ever imagine. The greatest breakthroughs often come after the longest seasons of waiting. The most incredible blessings often follow the most difficult trials. The most beautiful stories often begin with chapters of uncertainty. What we see as delays, God sees as divine timing. What we perceive as silence, He sees as preparation. And what we believe to be obstacles, He knows as stepping stones leading us exactly where we are meant to be. Faith in God's timing is not about passively waiting for things to happen. It is about actively trusting that He is working, even when we cannot see it. It is about holding on to hope when everything around us says to give up. It is about choosing to believe that no matter how long it takes, no matter how uncertain the journey feels, God's plan is always worth the wait. When we fully embrace faith in God's timing, we find peace. We no longer rush through life in fear of missing out. We no longer question every closed door. Oh, Sanma. We no longer live in frustration over what has not yet happened. Instead, we walk in confidence, knowing that every step we take is leading us towards something incredible. We rest in the assurance that God's plans are greater than anything we could ever create for ourselves. We find joy in the waiting, knowing that what is coming is worth every moment of patience. And when the time is right, when God says, now we will step into His blessings fully prepared, fully equipped, and fully ready to receive what He has been preparing for us all along. Courage is not the absence of fear. It is the ability to move forward despite fear. Fear is a natural part of life. It creeps into our minds when we face uncertainty, when we step outside our comfort zones, and when we encounter obstacles that seem too big to overcome. It tells us we are not strong enough, not capable enough, not worthy enough. It tries to convince us that failure is inevitable, that rejection is unbearable, and that disappointment is too painful to risk. But faith has the power to silence fear. Faith reminds us that we are not alone, that we are stronger than we think, and that God has already equipped us with everything we need to succeed. Fear holds us back from pursuing our dreams, from embracing new opportunities, and from living the life we were meant to live. It keeps us stuck in the familiar, in the comfortable, in the places where we feel safe. But growth does not happen in places of comfort. A transformation does not take place in the absence of challenges. The life God has planned for us is far greater than the limited space that fear wants to confine us to. And the only way to step into that life is to have the courage to push through fear, to take risks, to trust that even if we fall, God will be there to catch us. Many of us spend our lives waiting for the fear to go away before we take action. We tell ourselves that once we feel confident, once we feel ready, once the fear disappears, then we will move forward. But if we wait for fear to leave, we may never take the first step. Courage is not about feeling ready. It is about choosing to act even when we are afraid. It is about trusting that God will guide our steps even when we cannot see the path ahead. It is about believing that what is on the other side of fear is far greater than anything we could ever imagine. Faith does not guarantee that we will never experience fear. It does not promise that we will never face moments of doubt or hesitation. But faith does give us the strength to keep going. It gives us the ability to stand firm when everything inside us wants to run. It reminds us that fear is temporary, but regret lasts forever. The dreams placed in our hearts, the purpose we are meant to fulfill, the impact we are destined to make, all of these things require us to step out in faith, to take chances, to move forward even when fear tries to hold us back. One of the most common fears that stops people from pursuing their dreams is the fear of failure. We are afraid of making mistakes, of falling short, of trying and not succeeding. But failure is not the opposite of success. It is a part of success. Every great achievement in history has been built on a foundation of failures. Every successful person has faced setbacks, disappointments, and moments of doubt. What separates those who succeed from those who never reach their potential is the willingness to keep going despite failure. It is a decision to see failure not as an ending, but as a lesson, as a stepping stone, as an opportunity to grow. When we trust in God's plan, we begin to see that failure is not something to fear. It is not a sign that we are not good enough or that we should give up. Instead, it is a tool that shapes us, refines us, and prepares us for what is coming next. Every setback has a purpose. Every challenge is a chance to grow stronger. Every mistake teaches us something valuable. And when we approach life with faith instead of fear, we begin to understand that even when things do not go as planned, they are still working for our good. Another fear that often holds us back is the fear of what others will think. We worry about being judged, about being criticized, about not being accepted. We hold ourselves back because we are afraid of standing out, of being different, of not meeting the expectations that others have placed on us. But when we live our lives based on the opinions of others, we give away our power. We allow fear to dictate our choices, to limit our potential, to keep us from stepping into our true calling. Faith frees us from the need for external validation. It reminds us that we do not need the approval of people when we have the approval of God. It tells us that our worth is not determined by how others see us, but by who we are in God's eyes. When we truly believe that we are loved, chosen, and created for a purpose, we stop letting fear control us. We stop worrying about what others will say and start focusing on what God has called us to do. We stop holding back and start stepping forward in confidence, knowing that our purpose is far greater than any opinion or criticism we might face. Fear also manifests in the form of self-doubt. It convinces us that we are not good enough, that we are not smart enough, that we do not have what it takes. It reminds us of our past mistakes, our weaknesses, our insecurities. It makes us question whether we are capable of achieving the dreams that God has placed in our hearts, closed in our hearts. But faith reminds us that we are not defined by our past, by our failures, or by our limitations. It tells us that God does not call the qualified, He qualifies the called. He does not choose the strongest, the most talented, or the most experienced. He chooses those who are willing to trust Him, to step out in faith, to believe that with Him all things are possible. Courage is not something we are born with. It is something we develop. It grows every time we choose faith over fear. It strengthens every time we take a step forward despite uncertainty. It builds every time we refuse to let fear dictate our decisions. And the more we practice courage, the easier it becomes to trust in God's plan, to believe in His promises, to walk confidently in the direction of our purpose.